listening to Meet the Thriller Author, the podcast where I interview writers of mysteries, thrillers, and suspense books. I am your host, Alan Peterson, and this is episode number 97. In this episode of the podcast, we welcome back Andrews and Wilson, who are the best-selling co-author team of 4 different covert ops and action-adventure thriller series, Tier 1, Sons of War, The Shepherds, and Nick Foley. Their latest book is Scars, which is a John Dempsey novella, and it's the first of their Tier 1 origin books, which will be telling the stories from their popular secondary characters from their best-selling Tier 1 series. And you can get that now at thrillingreads.com/scars. And we're going to be talking to Brian and Jeff about their busy writing and publishing schedule, writing during these crazy times that we're living right now, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned for my interview with Jeff and Brian. Before we get to the interview, I would like to talk to you for a moment about Masterclass over at thrillingreads.com/masterclass, which offers online classes taught by the world's greatest minds. You can learn how to write best-selling thrillers from James Patterson and Dan Brown, learn the art of storytelling from Neil Gaiman, guitar from Carlos Santana, filmmaking from Martin Scorsese and David Lynch, acting from Natalie Portman, comedy from Steve Martin, magic from Penn and Teller, and it just goes on and on with an amazing lineup of over 60 instructors. You can access one at a time or get an all-access pass, which is what I got. And by signing up via my affiliate link at thrillingreads.com/masterclass, you are supporting this podcast, so I thank you. It's been a few months since I talked to you guys. Welcome back to the podcast. Nice to see you guys again.
Great to be here, Alan. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to be back.
Yeah, so things have changed a little bit since last time we talked. Hope everyone's doing well with the pandemic and everyone's families are doing well.
It's a good time to be a full-time writer, that's for sure, right?
Yes.
So it's a little harder having everybody here at home, like you and I talked about offline. It's a little less quiet, but also a little less lonely. So our family's doing well, that's for sure.
Have you noticed that that's changed? I'm sorry, what was that, Jeff?
I just said, we're all buckled down at my house too. The kids are off school for the rest of the year, and my wife is working from home as well. So it's we've been doing this now long enough, though. I think we're in a new routine. We've at least gotten our routine down, so that helps.
Yeah, yep, same here. My wife's she's out there on a conference call, and yes, but it's been a couple months now, so we're getting used to it now.
Yeah.
So we don't have any kids though, so it makes it easier. I can't imagine you guys with children and having to be the brunt of the education now as well, on top of everything else.
Yeah, well, there's only 4 kids, so.
Oh, that's it. Wow, and you guys seem to be even busier than the last time we talked. Want to share a little bit about the stuff that you guys have going on here the next couple months?
Yeah, it's been exciting, man. We've had an exciting few months. We've got some new contracts that have already been announced. We've got, as you know, we have the new spin-off series with Blackstone that we announced a few months ago, and that's part of the Tier 1 universe, but it's its own series. The Weapons of War series, we're calling it. So that's exciting. That first book in that comes out next summer in June. And we just signed, the ink is still drying on a 3-book deal with Tyndale House for a faith-based thriller series called The Shepherds, which we're hard at work on now, which is really exciting. And then, of course, we still have Tier 1. Book 6 comes out in September. We're really excited. We've got that all polished up, just finished that, and can't wait for people to see it. And then we've got this crazy new idea where we launched a series of novellas called the Tier 1 Origin series, with the first book, Scars, coming out May 1st. Maybe I'll let Brian tell you a little bit more about that. That was sort of his brainchild.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeff. We were talking about, every once in a while when we're in between, we're just trying to get a little break and have fun. We'll talk about different emails from fans that we get or feedback that we get. And one of the consistent themes is that would come in from time to time is, we'd love to know, people ask questions about characters' backstories. What did John Dempsey do when he was Jack Kemper? Tell us about some of his missions, or, what was Jarvis doing before he met Dempsey, or what did Grimes do before she became a member of Ember? So we sort of noodled on that for a while, and we thought, it'd be tough to write a full book about each of these supporting characters, but what we could easily do, sort of in between each Tier 1 book, would be tell a story that's related to any of these, fan favorite characters that somehow ties into the next story. So it's fun with the Origin series because we feature each Origins novella will feature one of the Tier 1 characters, and we're going to start, of course, with John Dempsey. And the title of that first novella, Scars, is it is meaningful. So anyone that's a fan of the series has read the opening sequence. That's the first thing you learn about Jack Kemper is he's tracing this scar on his forearm, the serpentine scar that wraps around his arm. And we never tell you how he got it, but it matters to him. He looks back on this thing as a mistake. And so Jeff and I thought it would be fun to explore, how to get that scar and what does it mean, and is it relevant to who he is as a character now? So that's sort of the name genesis of the first novella.
And that's the first one.
Yeah, May 1st. It'll be live May 1st, and we're really excited for people to see it. It'll be interesting to see what the feedback is, because some people will love it, some people maybe it won't be as satisfying. We hope everybody loves it, obviously. But one thing that was fun that we didn't expect, or I didn't expect, I won't speak for Brian, but I think I got to know Dempsey better working on this novella than I did. I mean, we of course we know his backstory. We've been writing him now for several years. He's 6 books in. We love the guy. But having to go back in time and really think not just about what happened, but about how he would have been different then than he is now, before the operation in Yemen, before the Operation Crusader, where he lost all of his teammates and, he suffered the loss of his family and all these other things. What was he like before then? And so we intentionally set the book back in 2006, and he is a brand new squad leader with the Tier 1 SEAL team, running missions in Iraq at that time. And so we very, very intentionally set it before, when he's still married and he's got a little boy at home, and none of these other things have happened. How would he be different before those traumatic events created the man that eventually became John Dempsey? So I got to say, I learned a lot about Dempsey writing that novella. It was really, really fun, and I'm looking forward to doing the next one.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of fun, because that's something we always read in a book, and you like a character, you always wonder about the backstory, and even on television, that Better Call Saul, goes back to the backstory of secondary characters of Breaking Bad. I think that's a really cool idea.
It's everybody's favorite episode, right? Even in the mainstream series, they'll do that one episode where the person that's sort of a secondary character moves to the forefront, and everybody loves those stories. They get to know the people better. And then the next episodes, you look at that character a little differently because you're a little more intimate with them. You know things, their secret side. It's fun.
And you mentioned when we were chatting before started recording about that you're gonna. I believe you said you're gonna let the fans choose one of these stories, these upcoming stories.
Yeah, we don't have the details ready for release yet, but once we announced this novella, we got, between our emails and our website and our social media, we've just been inundated with everybody has some very strong opinions, we found out, about who they want the next one to be. And interestingly, it was all over the board. Like if it was 80% of people wanted one of these characters versus the others, we probably would have just moved forward with that and not given it another thought. But when we started seeing all the mail and answering some of the letters or the emails rather, and seeing the social media posts, and it was so evenly weighted, Brian and I said, what should we do next? Like someone's going to be mad no matter what we do. So really, this is more to just a preemptive self-defense. So you can blame your fellow fans for whoever comes next, because we're going to have a contest. We'll be announcing it later in the summer. And one fan will get to pick who the next novella is about.
Yeah, and speaking of contests, if you buy the Scars novella now, and you email our website the sort of the proof of purchase, then you get entered into this drawing. We're giving away a complete box set, so 5 signed copies of Tier 1 books, and then a bottle breacher. An exclusive Tier 1 bottle breacher. So that's been fun because lots of people have been sending in. We've gotten hundreds and hundreds of submissions folks send in their, proof of purchase, but they always usually include a note too. So a lot of people are like, oh, can't wait to read this, dig in. And the other thing we did that's sort of fun is we included the first chapter for Collateral. So Collateral's book 6 comes out in September, and we put that in there as a little teaser. We're still editing, putting the final touches on the rest of the book, but that first chapter is all polished up and ready to go. So you get to read the first chapter of Collateral and see where that story is going to kick off. So that'll be fun.
And what's the difference between what's like the length of between a novella and a novel? I know it varies so much. What is it for you guys?
Well, it's you and I have talked about this before. You should never pigeonhole yourself into a word count, right? I mean, the story takes how long it takes. But I think that most people would accept that if you got to be somewhere over 25,000 words to be more than a short story, and you definitely have to be probably under, I don't know, 50 or 60,000 words to be a novella. So we tried to hit that sweet spot. The story took whatever time it took, but it wound up, what is it, around 65 pages, Brian?
Yeah.
I think 65 or 70 pages for the novella, and then of course we tacked on this little bonus of a chapter of Collateral as well. So yeah, for us, it hit that sweet spot, and it's very comfortable there. You and I talked before, Alan, about the difficulties of writing short fiction, the challenges that, a lot of people think it's easier, but in fact, it's way harder to try to give an arc, to have a character go from A to B as a character, as well as the story in a finite number of pages is a real challenge. And I think that, that's about the right amount of time to tell an event story for these characters. Somewhere in the 60, 70 page range, I think, was the sweet spot.
And was your co-authoring process the same? Like the same? I mean, you guys have been working together for a while, so I'm assuming that you're not going to change what's working.
Yeah, it's too late.
You're stuck.
If we're going to make changes, we had to do it before we signed all these contracts. We can't rock the boat now with 3 or 4 books a year to write. That's for sure. So yeah, it's pretty much the same as what we talked about before. We write together. We pass things back and forth. We rewrite together. It's become almost a muscle memory for us now, I think.
6th book is coming out in the fall, right? The Collateral?
September 1st, yeah.
So that's exciting as well. And can you tell us anything about those new book deals you have? What you can share, what you can't?
Well, I think we can. The easy one to start with, and I'll let Jeff talk about the Tyndale deal, but the Blackstone deal's going to be pretty fun, I think, for a lot of our readers, because we're taking another fan favorite character, Chunk. So Lieutenant Keith Redmond, Lieutenant Commander rather, Keith Redmond. He is a Tier 1 Navy SEAL, or he's been selected for the new Tier 1 Navy SEAL. So in the Tier 1 universe, I think we're at the point now where there's no spoilers. Tier 1's been out for long enough. But as we know, the Tier 1 was decimated in the first book. And now that we're 5 or 6 books in, Kelso Jarvis is the DNI, and he's thinking about, okay, it's time to stand the Tier 1 back up again. And when Jeff and I had that conversation about, how would this happen? You're not just going to leave it down forever. And we realized, it would happen. It would get stood back up. And it would get repopulated, and they would go to someone like Dempsey, and they would ask for recommendations, and they would, he would throw in some names in the hat, and Chunk would be one of those. So Chunk's one of these fan favorite characters. He showed up in War Shadows. He was in Crusader 1. He made another appearance in Red Spectre. And, I think it's safe to say he may be back in Collateral too. So he is so popular. We get more mail about him than anybody else. So we felt like this is a real opportunity to do something more than just a novella, because this is a guy that's sort of like what John Dempsey was 10 years ago. And he's ready to lead his own missions and have his own team.
The fun thing about, for me at least, about building that series is rounding out an entire team around Chunk. And it actually was pretty easy to do, because in Red Spectre, we had the opportunity to introduce some of his teammates. At the time, he's with East Coast-based SEAL team. He's not with the Tier 1. He's hoping to get selected when they stand it up. but we had an opportunity in Red Spectre to introduce these characters who were really, really fun. It was very reminiscent of sort of those SEALs that we introduced at the very beginning of Tier 1. And then, of course, all those guys were lost in the Yemen attack. So it was a pretty easy process by the time we had this deal and we knew we were going to be able to write the series. We had a whole cast of characters already set up to do it. But the challenge was for us as the writers and for Chunk as the team leader is, right now the Tier 1 units, people come and go, guys leave, new guys come in, and you've got this cadre of people and a neat training pipeline. So the fun thing that we were able to write into the first book in this series was, what if they had to start it from scratch? Yeah, you'd find some guys, some older guys that had been there in the past that could help you, but there's no existing unit. And to train from, zero to your first mission would be like recreating the entire thing. And that would be a real big challenge for these guys. And so that was really fun to be able to work some of that stuff in, how that training evolution would work, what it would have to be like. And of course, it's not a thriller if they don't have to go off on a short fuse mission long before they're ready, right? So it was really exciting to build a whole new cast of characters, I think.
Yeah, and I'm thinking if listeners haven't listened to the previous interview I did with you guys are the real deal with your backgrounds. Can you share a little bit about your background, your military background, your background before you started writing these thrillers?
Sure. So I have a very eclectic background. My mom says I can't keep a job. So I've done a whole variety of things, much of it in the Navy. I spent some time in aviation. Initially, in the training pipeline, I was in an accident and I went and flew flew jets for a coal company and some other things for a while. Then I worked in another branch of the federal government for a few years and eventually decided that I wanted to have a peaceful life. So I decided to leave all the violence behind, and I went to medical school to become an academic. I wanted to be one of those teaching professor research doctors, and that was on track to do that. Was been selected for a vascular fellowship at the end of surgery residency when those crazy guys flew planes into the towers and killed all those people in the Pentagon and lost the plane in the field in Pennsylvania. And like most Americans, it just really pissed me off. So I was a naval reservist at the time, and I went to the detailer and I said I wanted to go on regular active duty, and was able to fight my way through that red tape. And then I was in the Navy. My very first assignment was at Naval Medical Center Portsmouth. Shortly after arriving, I deployed to Iraq with the Marines as part of a FRIS team, which is those forward surgical units that go with the Marines to the edge of the battlefield. And while I was there, I ran into some people from a past life, and they introduced me to some of these crazy SEAL types, and I got recruited to join an East Coast-based SEAL team and become a combat surgeon with them and develop some new battlefield surgical techniques. So that's sort of my military background. I spent the vast majority of my time after 9/11 with Naval Special Warfare, working for those guys.
I'm also a Navy veteran, but while Jeff's playing around on land, I was hundreds of feet below the water. So I was a submarine officer on a fast attack nuclear submarine in the Pacific, and tooling around doing all the stuff that submarines do. So we, as a fast attack, we were a multi-mission platform. So we did all kinds of things. We did blue water operations, battle group escort. We did coastal littoral surveillance. We did fire tomahawks, submarines fire tomahawks to support special warfare and to lead salvos and, offensives and things like that. So we're always out there. You just can't see us.
Yeah, I think that's why your books have so much, feel like so much realism, because you guys are actually, the people, you've been there yourself, so it makes it a lot of fun. Do you still, how much research do you put into each story before you even start to get writing? Do you still do a lot of research before you get down to it?
We definitely spend a lot of time researching the geopolitics, that's for sure, because you got to stay tuned in. Some of that research happens every minute of every day. We try to stay informed, stay tuned in, read between the lines of what you see on the news. And we're constantly in conversation just socially about what if, do you think really? And so those become the germs of ideas for books. for us, I will tell you the part that requires less research is, those that read our books know we write very character-driven stories. So we put a lot of current events and geopolitics into our books, which I hope makes them exciting. But it's the characters that drive the stories, and we've been blessed to work in environments where we have, worked and fought side by side with the guys that we write about, and so that part comes very naturally. But also, I think we feel a tremendous responsibility on that side of the house. We want these characters to not be those sort of comic book characters you sometimes see in thrillers when people write about SEALs or special operators. We want them to be very real people with strengths and weaknesses, who are, consider themselves to be ordinary people, even though they do extraordinary things. And so we take that responsibility very seriously. But having been blessed with spending time with those men, it makes it very easy to write, because many of these characters are amalgams of people we've known.
On one interesting thing, though, to sort of dovetail into that, is in Collateral we did do something that we haven't done before, which is we did a sort of extended subplot that takes place on an Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyer. So it's a DDG. We picked the USS Donald Cook as a tribute to the tip of the spear sort of operations that the Donald Cook is doing right now. They've been up there in the Baltic. They've been in the Black Sea several times. They've had numerous run-ins with our Russian friends, the Russian Navy, the Russian Air Force. So we thought it would be really fun to sort of pay tribute to those guys in the surface Navy. So yeah, we have 5 or 6 chapters, I think, Jeff, right, that take place. A new character, Captain Dustin Townsend. Dusty is a new guy, and maybe he'll come back again, but he's the CO of the fictional Donald Cook in this story. So you get a really fun new experience for Tier 1 fans. You get what is it like being on a surface combatant in a very, very stressful, dangerous situation? How do they handle being in the Hornet's nest? So they're in the Black Sea. They've got to deal with Russian surface ships, the Kilo-class submarines, and then all the planes that are making their life miserable. So that was sort of fun, and Jeff and I got to spend some time talking to a captain. He's in the Pentagon, and he will remain nameless right now, but a gentleman who's been a CO of an Arleigh Burke, and he was extremely helpful. Driving a submarine and driving an Arleigh Burke are a little different. But a lot of it, there's a lot of overlap too. So he just helped us fine tune, get it all right for how it goes on an Arleigh Burke. And I think that people will find this kind of fun. Yeah,
I tell you, I do hope that he gives us permission to thank him publicly, because he was amazing. The help he did, those chapters will resonate with the realism of the chapters we usually write. And it's not because of us. It's because of how gracious he was. And he spent literally hours and hours and hours with us working on these chapters. And I'll tell you what, he's got a writer's insight. Like, he is, I don't know if he's going to be a writer, but he should be. So if he's listening, call us. You got to write your own book, man. He is a natural for the storytelling. He wasn't just giving us the details and the technology. He really is a storyteller. So hopefully we get to thank him in public eventually.
Yeah, there's one anecdotal there's a little scene in there that's something he was telling us about on the phone, and I said, that would be sort of fun. if you're okay, we'll put it in there. And he said, oh yeah, that would be funny. He's like, then I can show all my buddies, remember this, So it's in there. It made it in.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, hopefully he does start writing his own books. It sounds like he's got some amazing stories to tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you were saying about your characters too. I noticed I think it was a couple of weeks ago on the Real Book Spy named John Dempsey one of the top the top 10 most lethal characters in thriller genre right now, and John Dempsey was right in there. How did that make you guys feel, and how cool was that?
Yeah, it's totally cool. I mean, I think it's not us, it's Dempsey. He earned it, that's for sure. He earned it with his own psychopathology. But what was fun for us about it is cool and an honor to be there. I know that that's a fan-driven list, and so we were pretty excited to see Dempsey on the list. But what was most exciting for us was to see the company he was in with some of our other favorite, these guys are our friends, and a lot of the writers there have got amazing characters. And so to know that Dempsey is viewed that way was very flattering indeed.
So, so I know you guys have your full schedule. What are you guys working on now? What's coming up next for you guys?
Yeah. So in addition to the putting the final touches, we actually just finished all of our developmental edits and stuff for Collateral, and we think we got it ready to go. So the people that are pre-ordering it hopefully won't be disappointed. But in addition, now we're focusing our attention on the first book in the Shepherd series. The Blackstone series, Weapons of War, is that first book is done in rough draft, and we're waiting for developmental edits with our very talented editor, Caitlin Alexander. And we're in the throes of writing the first book in the Shepherd series, which is something very new and different for us. So not just because we're with a faith-based house, Tyndale House is one of the largest Christian publishers in the world. And they do amazing stuff. They publish Joel Rosenstein. Of course, everyone knows his work. He's incredible. And so we're just really excited to have been picked up there and to work with amazing people. But the books are different. They're not straight up door kicking SEAL stuff, which we love, of course. But we're able to stretch our arms and backs a little bit and be a little more speculative. So what we've done in this series is we've created a new universe with some very action-oriented people, former Navy SEALs and special operators who are fighting the bad guys. But now the bad guys have a broader reach, and we're really excited to look into these concepts of what is good and evil and spiritual warfare. So we've got some very speculative, biblically based supernatural elements in the book, which is new for us. So it's really, really exciting. And it's, you write the same stuff. We love writing Dempsey. We love writing this other stuff. But you always have that little creative voice in your mind saying, but what about this? And what about this? So having a little outlet to be a little more speculative is something we're just over the top excited about. And we can report that this first book is nearly done in rough draft form, and I am so excited about it. It ties in our military backgrounds with some of the speculative supernatural fiction that we've both written in the past. Brian's written an amazing speculative book called Reset, which I am a huge fan of. I've done a few supernatural thrillers in the past. So being able to pull all that together, just so exciting. We're really, really excited for the new series. So that first book comes out a year from September 2021, and we'll be telling and sharing a lot more about it in the coming months, but very excited.
Okay, well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast again. It was and catching up with what you guys have been doing with your incredible busy schedule. It's just I'm in awe. Thank you for coming on the podcast, and looking forward to all these books that are coming out here in the next months.
Well, thanks, Alan. We always enjoy talking to you, man. Anything we can do for you, let us know. But it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks, Alan. We had a great time.
Thanks for listening to the Meet the Thriller Author podcast. Be sure to visit thrillerauthors.com to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover great thrilling reads. If you enjoy the podcast, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review to it wherever it is that you're listening to this podcast, be it iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, wherever it is that you're listening to this right now. I would appreciate it. And please do check out my own thriller novels over at my website at alanpeterson.com. Until next time.